Hey, and hello there, Lindsay.
Hi there, Georgie. Nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no, it's lovely to see this real turnaround from you did your
Yes.
recovery story, didn't you, initially?
Yes.
That was a while ago.
Yeah, I
Um,
think that happened during COVID. So I think it's about 4 years ago now.
about four
Yeah,
years. And then
yeah,
since then, you've done your training to be a
yes,
coach and then to become a SIRPA practitioner.
exactly.
So,
Yeah, I have.
so while we're waiting for people to join, because people who watch this later will be able to catch up on this anyway, do you want
Yeah,
to tell us how you got into this work, how you came across it, and your own journey?
yeah, absolutely. I'll try and keep it brief because I know these
Yes.
things, I know it can go on, but essentially, cut a long story short, I have recovered from mainly back pain. Although I did, at the real sort of peak of everything, I did have other symptoms as well, such as tinnitus and rashes, shoulder pain, groin pain. So it was starting to spread. And essentially, I'd done what most people do. I'd been through all of the usual routes. So I'd had MRI scans for my back, and I was told, that I had bulging discs and that it was just, wear and tear. And off you go and, do a few stretches in Pilates, and I'm sure your life will be fabulous.
Yes.
Unfortunately, it didn't quite work that way. And as we all know, living with pain is really miserable. And I stopped doing a lot of things that I loved. And physically, I had lost all of my confidence. So, like many people in that situation, I would have episodes where I was bedridden and I had two small children, and I had a quite full-on job. And, I was basically, overwhelmed. So eventually I crossed paths with a fabulous osteopath who actually pointed me in the direction of SIRPA. So, which was the day my life changed. And I know that sounds really dramatic, but it's absolutely true. So I remember the day really clearly. I had my mobile phone. I was sitting in the back garden. The sun was shining. And I think I found you on YouTube first, but I just went to the case studies section and I listened to a wonderful, I remember her, too, Irish lady talking about her back pain and how she had used this thing called SIRPA to help her, and those practices, and everything she was saying about herself I connected with. So I sat there and I cried an awful lot because I just thought, oh my goodness, it intrigued me, and
This is
instantly,
where the word hope comes in, I
this
think,
is the
doesn't
word
it?
where hope
You
came
have,
in. Hope came in, yeah. And I
yeah,
just thought, there's something in this. I know, I just instinctively felt it inside myself that there was something, and I'd always felt that there was something, better and more than having to rely on, let's say, pain relief or just literally
yes.
living frozen in fear. I couldn't accept that as a person anyway. So yeah, I did the SIRPA online course, and then I did some coaching one-to-one with Georgie, and I came out the other side, and my life has changed in so many ways. And I always say it's not just about overcoming the pain, which is absolutely fabulous. Obviously, you can then go back to living a really active life, but there's so much more to it than just that. Just your general well-being, mindset, everything for me personally has changed, where I just feel so much more, I don't really like the word resilient, but I just have a much better sense of calm, inner strength,
Yes.
and I just feel in a much better place as a person. So there you go.
Well, in case anybody who's joined us is thinking this is a success story, well, yes, Lindsay is a success story as far as a recovery story from mind
Yeah,
body conditions.
yeah,
But we'll come on to your next step in a moment. At the moment, I just want to say hello to everybody who's joined us. And please do pop a comment in so that Lindsay and I know we're not just here just chatting together. And if you've got any questions from Lindsay's recovery or as we carry on talking, please do just pop some questions in, and when we get a chance, then we will go through them. But in the meantime, by all means, say hello and where you are. So very clearly remember working with you, Lindsay. I really enjoyed working with you, and I know you were really keen to use your own progress and sort of move further from there and be able to help other people. So you went on and did coaching qualification.
Yeah.
So in order to do the SIRPA training, is that right?
That's right. Yeah. So I did the life coaching, and I'll be completely honest with you. I was so determined. I was so struck and moved by the work that SIRPA does, that I thought, well, that's it. I'm just going to get a life coaching qualification. I just need it, so I'm going to get one. But actually, when I did it, it was also really, really, really valuable, and I learned so much about myself going through that process. And now I would say with the work that I do with clients is that it's absolutely driven by the SIRPA approach, but actually the coaching work really does fit really nicely hand in hand. And I think
which is why we don't take people on in the training, the full training, unless they've done a full-blown qualification, so that you are qualified and experienced in working with clients, or a coaching qualification, again, where you start learning how to work with clients, and the coaching courses, of course, just blend in beautifully with the work that we're doing, and it helps you expand further into your own work as well as being able to help others. So
absolutely, yeah. So that in itself was a revelation, and you're right. I had to do just as you do with the SIRPA work, work with numerous different people and take them through a journey. And a lot of that is obviously based on, overcoming sort of negative or self beliefs which are holding you back. And I found that was really beneficial when I was marrying it up with working with people on their SIRPA journey, because obviously we all have a lot of limiting beliefs, and also goal setting. In terms, when you work with people in coaching, you're setting manageable, realistic goals, but something for them to really work towards, and finding their own way of finding the solution that works for them. And I think that also works really well with the SIRPA work.
I fit so well with both of them, looking at our values. What are your values? Because that helps us then look at goals and moving forwards. I just want to say hello to Lynn, who's popped in, another SIRPA trained GP. Hi Lynn, nice to see you here. Thank you. So anybody else, if you're here, do pop in, say hello, let us know where you are. I know where Lynn is, in the southwest. So carry on.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And also I think it fits really, really nicely with a huge lesson that I learned from undergoing working with you, Georgie, with the coaching, and you get to learn an awful lot about yourself, that suddenly makes things make a lot of sense. And I was definitely a person that previously put myself under an awful lot of pressure. So, the self-induced pressure, I think when I received the forms for the pre-assessment, which you do when you work with practitioners, you have to sort of go through all sorts of different questions, which are really necessary to understand that person as a whole. And I ticked most boxes. So, perfectionism and, being conscientious and pleasing other people and all of those things. And with the coaching, I really learned that just the way that we speak to ourselves, the language that we use, the pressure that we put upon ourselves. So although the SIRPA work is absolutely fabulous and really absolutely fits when people have been through what we all know in everyday language of trauma, someone who's been through a very traumatic childhood, for example, but also really with the coaching work, we all have our own self-induced pressures that creates that imbalance.
I have to point out at this point that not everybody who come as clients have had what we would call trauma. Because
absolutely.
The small T's are what they talk about in things like parents maybe not supporting you as much as you'd hope, or a bit of bullying, or some more minor things that, who hasn't experienced that? Putting a hand up to speak in a class and being ridiculed, that could be that one moment that really changes the way you believe in yourself and how you talk to yourself, apart from anything else. So that's all part and parcel, and the coaching, definitely works beautifully with that, helping people work through that. I just want to say hello to Tina again, also from Cyprus. Nice to see you. And any questions as we're talking, please do put them in the box, and then when we get a moment, we will stop and answer those. So yeah, that's why I think, you know, coaching just this. I believe this is what we're doing. We are coaching and mentoring, and that's why I think, you know, having a coaching qualification to really build on your understanding and then developing experience of coaching people just makes it. Just means that you can integrate this work so well, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's really important in terms of the recovery as well. So when obviously you start upon this journey, if you have the personality trait that, you know, you're pushing yourself, you're competitive, or you're a perfectionist, then, you know, there is that element that you're pushing to get better. Whereas when you sit back and you look at the language you're using, like, I want to get better, I must get better, rather than all of the shoulds and oughts. It's something that I've become very aware of personally, but also with other people that I work with, because you listen to the language that they're using.
You do, don't you?
Yeah. And you suddenly realize, okay, wow, you're just putting so much pressure on yourself. And let's just have a look at it and spin it and say, well, what if you just rephrase that? And instead of, you know, I must or I should, you know, I would like to. What would it feel like if I tried this? You know, what would it be like if I gave this a go? And that immediately alleviates that sense of urgency, which obviously can really block the progress of somebody making that nice sort of transition through that journey. So I just think it's a really important point, because I think it's something that everyone can become aware of and start to become aware of.
And I think that's important to note, because we talk about unresolved emotions manifesting as symptoms. These could be repressed from the past, from trauma, things like that. But they're also avoided emotions, like putting pressure on ourselves but not dealing with it. Just talking to you just reminded me of the first time I had a pain that came up after coming across Dr. Sana's work. So this is like, well, it was back in 2008. So I remember 2007. I remember driving to a course which was about an hour away on the motorway. Torrential rain, wind, pretty horrible at about 8:30 in the morning, and I was in the outside lane overtaking a couple of lorries, and started getting the old neural pathways that got triggered. The old pain I used to get ever since I was thrown from a horse when I was in my early 20s. And developed and tore some muscles there, and I had scar tissue there. That's always going to be there. But that was the point where I would get pain in my shoulder, and it came along. But because I'd had this understanding now, as soon as I could, I pulled into the slow lane and I slowed right down, and I did some calm breathing, and I began to just notice how I was feeling and really what I've been saying to myself, and then just recognizing, okay, Georgie, so what's going on? Well, actually, it's pouring with rain. I don't like driving in rain and wind, and especially on the outside lane, because I'm trying to get to this course on time. So by going into the slow lane, I'd slowed down. I was calming myself down, allowing myself to feel how I felt while understanding it as well, and recognizing I was somebody who didn't want to be late. Okay, so that would often cause me pressure. So I thought I would be late, so I was rushing, and then I was saying to myself, so okay, Georgie, so if you're late, what's the worst that can happen? You see people who don't, where that's they're coming late, and all they say is, sorry, I'm late, and sit down. Does anybody take much notice? No. If you're going to miss 5 minutes of a day course, you're not going to miss an awful lot, are you?
Exactly.
So,
but
just by doing that, and that took 2 minutes?
To
just pull in, calm my breathing, note how I was feeling, allow myself to feel how I was feeling, rationalize it, reassure myself, and I was still on time.
Absolutely.
So I wasn't late.
But
I had noticed the pressure I was putting on yourself. And like you say, it's becoming aware of it. Most of this is unconscious. When we bring it to conscious awareness, then we can do something about it. So I just want to say, Shirley's saying hello as well. Not sure if you know her.
Shirley. She's my mum.
Oh, she's your mum, right? So video, I'm afraid that's not from this end, unless everybody else can't see the video. But we are playing. Hopefully you can get it working soon. So Athena, and otherwise, Shirley, don't worry, because when we're finished here, you'll be able to watch the replay.
Exactly.
You can hear us now.
It's my #1 fan.
Yes, quite. Okay, so Athena says, after she'd done everything to her body to heal chronic pain, after 10 years, I realized I have neuroplastic pain, really new to this journey. Well, that's fantastic. So, yeah, and basically, any chronic pain, when you've dismissed anything, so any tissue damaging trauma, disease process, then really, if it's gone on, if it's been chronic, so it's gone on past when the tissues would have healed, it is neuroplastic. And that's wonderful, because neuroplasticity, we can change what's going on in our brains. So we can change these pathways. So great. If you're starting this journey, there's so much information out there these days.
Well done, you. Yeah, go for it.
If you have any questions, just ask away.
Absolutely.
So what's also come to my mind as we're talking, as we were saying before we actually started, that, you know, this is a personal development program. This is not right, okay, deal with this better, that's it. It's not about getting rid of the pain.
Yeah.
The aim is to work on ourselves so we don't need the pain.
Exactly.
And you and I were both saying there's an awful lot going on in our lives at the moment. But the good thing is, so there's a lot of emotional upsets at times, that we might feel stressed at times. But now we have the awareness, and we're not perfect. We're not going to say, I doubt you'd say either, that, you know, we don't have any symptom at all. The difference is we don't go into the fear cycle, which drives the symptom, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then it's about noticing the sensations in our body, even maybe before we get the stress, and really putting ourselves as the priority for self-care. And then that means that I'm certainly a lot healthier than I was even 15 years ago, before then. And it's about just noticing and using these sensations in our body as a barometer, whether that is emotional sensations that we're trying to ignore because of being busy, but recognizing that we need to take time for ourselves and working on those. Or even if there is a symptom, to backtrack and look, okay, what am I not dealing with in my life, and working on that?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's all to do with awareness. And you know, I thought that this really for me was almost like learning a new language, without wanting to scare anybody. But it takes time and it takes practice, and it goes back to, you know, if you're learning Spanish, for example, and you've only been learning it for a week, and we airdropped you into Spain, you know, you are not going to be able to speak fluently, but you've already learned a few words that could probably get you a drink and something to eat, so you're not going to die, you're going to be okay, you know. And it's absolutely about that and the compassion piece, the kindness, to reassure yourself, you know, I'm learning something new and it's going to take me a little bit of time. And this is a completely different sense. The felt sense is, for me, was I just had no awareness of that before. Obviously, I met with you, Georgie, and you know, now I know, I can feel it. So just as you just had been completely honest about your journey down the motorway, you know, I can be completely honest about my morning. I will let you all into a massive secret. Technology absolutely has a way of flicking my switch. Oh my goodness.
I don't think you're alone there.
And this morning I decided I was going to try and do something, because I'm doing some new stuff and I've got a new website and I'm trying to, you know, fiddle about, and I can do this. And I could really start to sense myself. My chest was getting tight and my head was starting to sort of ache a bit. And I just thought, no, this is not the time to be doing this. You've got to be talking to Georgie later. And I just immediately identified, just stop. It's okay. You can absolutely come back to this. Now is not the time to push on through. Nothing's going to happen in the next hour or so. The world's still turning and you will get this done. But now is just not the moment for you to push on through. And I immediately recognized physically what was happening. So yeah, when we talk about everyday just pressures, I guess that's what I mean. It's identifying these little things that if you don't address them, they add up into a bigger thing. So it's about being able to just calm yourself down and be nice to yourself, you know.
Absolutely. And I remember times when I was working in the NHS where I used to get migraines, and I know I would have just been ignoring all the stuff before then, not ignoring because I wasn't aware of it, but ignoring the little headache or the nausea or the emotional signs beforehand then, because I didn't know what to do with them. Whereas again, if we're being honest about this morning, we've obviously both had a quietish morning, because I too woke up just feeling jaded after a weekend working away with our membership board, which was wonderful. But it's, that and I was very well aware that I needed to take some time off today, but actually I decided, just came in the office, did urgent stuff, and then just stepped back and took some time out for me for a couple of hours. And I think that's the difference. It is this, it's self-compassionate, it's reading the signs, using them as a barometer. And I know if I just pushed through, probably by this afternoon, I would have had a headache or whatever. We're not going to avoid having those, things like that. Overtired, having had a weekend of lots of great productive work and being away with friends and having a wonderful time, but actually then realizing, no, this morning my to-do list can wait. I look to the right there's my to-do list. It's not bothering me. I know that can just that will be there tomorrow, will be there the next day. And it's about, I think that's the main thing with us who've experienced this and then become practitioners, and people going through it now, is all of us starting to improve our awareness, as well as, obviously developing our felt sense, but actually becoming much more self-compassionate and starting to read, understand our language that we're talking about.
Exactly. And it just takes a little bit of practice, but once you start to recognize the signs, as you said, it takes a couple of minutes, literally a couple of minutes, just to reground yourself and to get yourself back into a place of safety, and to use language towards yourself that is just more caring and understanding. So I just simply said to myself, you've never done this before. How are you going to know how to do it? Don't give yourself such a hard time. It's a few simple, nice words, and you're just like, oh yeah, you're right, actually, I have never done this before. That's okay then. I'll just do it later. Yeah, it's all right.
Yeah, we don't be so hard on ourselves. Caroline's just saying, loving this, always great to have reminders to stop for a bit. I think that's the case, isn't it? It's, whether it's new or it's not, it's actually, we all go into that, I've got to do this, got to do that. And then actually, no, this is not serving me. And stepping back, because it's so easy to go back into the old patterns, and because unconscious patterns are always being triggered until we've really dealt with it and completely resolved them, and they can be challenging to do. But even if we get to the point where they're dormant most of the time, great, because if they're triggered, this is what I was going to say earlier, actually, was when people have what they call a setback or a flare up or whatever, if we can change our terminology around those, then that's great. Because, is it a setback, or is it actually just another opportunity for growth? Because if there is a flare-up, and I can think of a number of, loads of clients where that's occurred while I've been working with them, or after I have, then they've got back to me and completely overwhelmed and freaking out about something. But even the next day, they're going, oh yeah, no, I'm really glad that happened, because I really get this now, and I went back to I've just gone into the fears and lost hope. So actually, as long as we talk to ourselves kindly and we rationalize it, then we can actually really turn that around to be something to really learn from. And the more we learn from that with neuroplasticity, the more we are really developing the new neural connections rather than sticking with the old unconscious ones.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just like anybody else, I'm a person who, I am a person who is prone to getting symptoms through TMS. So of course my back pain is so much better, and I'm able to do things that I, absolutely wouldn't have dreamed of whilst I was in the height of the pain. But your brain's a really clever thing, and it's going to try other little areas, in your body. It's going to try and knock on another door and go, and by the way, why aren't you listening to me? And that's again, that's just part of the learning. It's part of just stepping back and saying, oh, okay, well, something's going on here. Is there an area that I haven't, given myself the time that I need to process X or Y, or have I just been, avoiding doing X or Y? But there's always, there will be a reason. There will be a reason. And if you can't find it, let it go. Don't search.
Absolutely. I would agree with that. Don't go searching. Just be kind to yourself, sit with yourself.
Exactly. An emotional hug.
Yes.
Or
Yeah.
a physical one.
It's just physically hugging yourself. Yeah. And just sort of stroking arms and hugging yourself. Yeah. So resourcing yourself, doing some calm breathing, stroking your arms.
Sorry, Georgie, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just going to say, I do think it's so important actually, because you do become more self-aware. I think I'm speaking from personal experience. I can get into the trap of searching, what's the reason? And I really had to step back from that too. And I just thought, there is one, but if it's not screamingly obvious right now, that's okay. It's just, I need a break. I need time to myself. Yes. I need to do something extra that is good for me, whether that's a joyful activity, whether I go for a run, or whether I do some singing because I love a bit of a sing song, or I go and stroke my cat because I just love them and they make me feel good. Do something else. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to search endlessly for an answer.
Absolutely. And sometimes even just asking a question before meditation or before going to sleep at night.
Yes.
Then your unconscious mind can process things. So
absolutely. Yeah, it's really powerful.
Okay, so let me just read out Donna's question. So I have neuroplastic pain. It hurts when I sit. My buttock muscles clench. Also when I stand. I feel as though I'm doing this and it's really impairing my life. I feel like I'm doing this. Okay, even if it's happening, it's not a conscious decision, Donna. It's an unconscious learned thing. So it's really impairing my life. It's causing me much distress. So I'm sorry to hear about that, Donna. There's so much that you can do. Yeah. So any comments? Shall I pass that on to you, Lindsay, to begin with?
Yeah, I mean, I first of all, Donna, I've been there, so I 100% know, and I know it's. I mean, I feel, as Georgie said, it's very much an unconscious thing. I had the same thing when I what I call a transition movement. So I used to have an awful lot of pain getting out of chairs and getting into chairs and sitting in certain positions. So I absolutely get it. But my mindset then was basically that I had structural damage, that my back. And also I was subconsciously telling myself before I sat down, this is going to hurt, it's going to hurt getting in, on, getting out. So I'd already set myself up, I think, mentally for something to happen, for something to hurt. And I think it's totally and utterly possible to retrain the neural pathways, which are basically triggering each time you do that movement. And I think it's really primarily about getting yourself into a place of safety and just feeling safe, when you come to do those movements. And actually, if you feel confident or you feel comfortable, literally sending a message to yourself. So I'm not sure. I mean, obviously, Georgie's got a fabulous book that deals with a lot of this. There's a fabulous book by Alan Gordon who deals a lot with just the messages of safety that we continuously give ourselves when we're retraining those neural pathways. So to literally say before you do something, to become aware of it before you do it, I am, essentially I'm strong and this is a safe move. Getting out of a chair is not going to structurally hurt my back. So it's about getting those safety messages, but really believing that that's the case. Georgie, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think in Donna's case, it's when she's sitting. So I think if your muscles are clenching, what I would suggest, Donna, is maybe even find a position that you're comfortable in. This might be lying down, whether it's lying on your back or your tummy or whatever, and do what we call, well, first of all, calm breathing, messages of safety, speaking to yourself, calming your breathing down, and maybe doing like a provocative testing exercise. So in this sort of thing, what you can do is you can just calm yourself down with calm breathing, close your eyes, just notice what's happening in your body, and then imagine yourself sitting up. Oh, imagine, first of all, there's 3 different stages of this. Imagine someone else sitting, maybe in a hard back chair, something that normally would give you pain. Just imagine that. Because with mirror neurons, often what happens is by imagining someone else doing it, you experience that fear yourself, and then you can often develop sensations, whether it's emotional sensations or sensations of discomfort. And that's great. And it's about being curious and allowing and just observing what's happening in your body while you continue to just do calm breathing, maybe stroking your arms, maybe just putting your hand on your chest and just calmly observing what's happening as it just calms down. You might want to, it might take a few times of doing that before you're not triggered by imagining somebody else doing it. You could then, the next step would be imagining yourself sitting in a chair. So it might be imagining yourself in a big squashy sofa or in a hardback chair or a camping chair, whatever you want. But it's about imagining it and then noticing what's going on in your body and then self-soothing, because what you're doing is you're retraining your brain from believing this is a dangerous activity to it's safe, everything's all right, you know, this is a safe activity, I am fit and healthy. And you do that as often as you need to. It might be, you know, for a few minutes, a few times a day, or it might be for a few minutes over a few days. But the next step, once you can imagine it and everything's fine and you're not having a reaction, you could then start using what we call the reframe. Imagine yourself doing that activity, but you're at a table and you're chatting to friends and you're just so focused on what you're doing, you're not thinking I'm sitting. The imagination, visualization is not I'm sitting in this chair, I'm managing it. It's actually what's going on around you. What can you see? What are you discussing? But you know you're sitting. And the more you do that and you reframe it and rationalize things, then that will ease off until you can then start doing that physically. And I know you did use the reframe quite a lot when you were doing this, weren't you, Lindsay?
Yeah, and visualization. So for me, I found that visualization, but also unique, I know, but I found that I used to do a lot of visualizations at night time before I went off to sleep. One of my nemesis was getting out of bed. So I used to, and I've got quite a creative mind. So I found that once I became comfortable, as you said, Georgie, with just visualizing myself, you know, swinging my legs to the side of the bed and getting out of bed, what I call just normally and at ease. And it was a lovely sunny morning and the coffee was in the background. And wasn't it, you know, I was just going to float, literally, you know, off I go rolling over and floating out of bed. And I just used to replay that a few times as I drifted off to sleep. And I used to try and imagine how happy I would feel on the morning that I just swung my legs out of bed and got out of bed and didn't even give it a second thought.
So can I just point out there, the reason for bringing in an emotion in, which is why you visualize having fun and being with people rather than just sitting, is you lock that emotion into that memory, you're more likely to remember something.
Yeah.
It's more likely to make a difference moving forward. So just as we all know where we were when the Twin Towers went down, or when Princess Diana died, or whatever, big things like that, or your wedding day, or a significant issue in your family, it's because the emotional content was there. So we're using this in a positive way to lock in that emotion with the positive visualization of something that you're able to do safely.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's personally when I used to do it, but that's exactly what I did. I used to make sure that I was aware of how it felt, like it felt just good, you know, just to be able to get out of bed in a seamless way.
Excellent. Yeah, excellent. Yeah. So whether you do that for something static or something movement or eating something, it doesn't really matter. The same thing can happen using visualization and a positive emotion, and to really sort of self-soothe and calm your primal brain down to recognize that it's safe to do. Yeah. It might be that when you're sitting in a chair, Donna, when you're actually sitting in a chair, that you've rather than being in your head and sort of clenching your buttocks, that you actually calm your breathing down and just start doing some emotional awareness, start noticing what's going on inside you. And if you go onto YouTube, onto my channel, I think it's in my name rather than SIRPA, so Georgie Oldfield, there is an emotional awareness in the playlist approach, SIRPA approaches, I think, whether it's for pain or any other symptom. There's an emotional awareness strategy there. The first half is an explanation. The second half is that you can use that as the strategy to do that. There's also a pause, breathe, feel, reassure strategy that I would again recommend, whether you've got pain at the time or whether you know you've been triggered. It's actually pause in that moment. This is what we were talking about this morning. We both noticed that we were either exhausted or wound up with something, to actually pause, calm our breathing down, notice how we're feeling, and then reassure ourselves using self-soothing language, using calming language. So that when you keep using that whenever you're triggered, that can really help. And all this, I remember having somebody in here actually who was struggling to sit down, yet she was able to, when we were doing that self-soothing and noticing what's going on in the body, and when it picked up, she'd start talking about something else, especially something from the past, the pain would come on. So we go back to just observing. What I found interesting was when she went home, she'd said she had to stand the whole way on the train coming to me. On the way home, she said, I only managed to sit halfway. I had to stand up the rest of the way. How's that for being hard on yourself? That's more than she did on the way. So it's praising yourself and really, reassuring yourself.
Celebrate those what seemingly tiny moves forward. I mean, I can't tell you the day that I stopped. I cannot tell you the day. I just can't that I stopped having that back pain. It just, for me, it was a very gradual process. But I think I was doing something and suddenly I was like, I'm bending to get a saucepan out, and wow, this is great. You have to.
And actually did go do a little jump.
You must celebrate those small steps forwards because they're huge. They're huge, actually. It's really important.
Yeah, absolutely. So I hope that helps with you all. Many people are talking about fears as well. So, like Donnie, you say, I fear it will never end. I'll come to you in a moment, Terry. But talking about fear. This is where the rationalizing is important. So
absolutely.
I talked about the reframe, SIRPA's reframe. That starts by rationalizing your fears first. Note, before you go to even think about doing something hurts, at the beginning when you're starting this work, then look at what are your fears about, whether it's sitting. What are your fears about sitting or lifting? Is it... do you worry that you need to take something with you when you go somewhere? Are you checking in about what it'll be like when you're there? Really look at those fears, rationalize those fears, look at the evidence that you're learning now, write those down, get an evidence sheet, things that maybe there are times that you've done something that would normally cause you pain, but it didn't cause you pain, maybe because it was the weekend or you were on holiday or whatever. Note all those down, because when you're having a flare-up day, then by looking through that, your evidence list, what you've managed to do, as well as other things you've read in the books that are supportive, reassure yourself. Note how you're talking to yourself, and if you are going, I can't do this, even just say to yourself, change, just to make sure you change the way that you're speaking to yourself. So before we move on to Terry's question, anything else you want to add there, Lindsay?
Yeah, no, I think that's huge. As I said before, the language we use and the way that we talk to ourselves has a huge impact on the way that fear will dial up or dial down. And I just think, you cannot overestimate or underestimate rather the power of that safety message either. I think it is all about reassuring yourself. And just as Georgie said, I've worked with several people who will have a couple of great days when they first start to make a recovery, or they might have a week that's fabulous, and then something might just happen. And it's about going back and saying, look, this time last month, I couldn't stay on my feet for more than an hour walking around. Look at me now. I managed to do half a day at the garden centre or something like that, something really down to earth, but to evidence the successes that you're having, because if you've done it once, you can absolutely do it again. And once you've done it another time, you're going to be able to do it again. And I think it's just, even if they're tiny little things, they're really important, and you've done it, and you can continue to build on that. And it's confidence that's just the way it's going to be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Terry, you say that lifting is the trigger for your pain, and that pain comes a few minutes after the lifting activity. Is this due to fear? Absolutely, it would be due to fear. It's also due to the neural circuits becoming learned. Now, as to why you your body learned to have the pain after the activity rather than during the activity, then that's very independent to you and your history and why that started to become wired in together. But it is quite common for people to do an activity and then it's a few minutes later or the afternoon. Sometimes if people are working with this work and they know it's about visualization, imagining themselves being able to cycle without pain, let's say, and they do really well, and then it's in fact, okay, story examples have just come to mind at the moment. I have two guys with knee pain, working with them around the same time many years ago. One of them, I'm trying to remember the story as I tell it. One of them was a runner, and another one, no, do you know what? I don't know if I'm going to be able to tell them fully, but basically what was happening was that they were working on themselves and doing the imagination, the visualization, doing the self-talk, and they did really well. And then one of them in the evening got, let's say they were both going to work. It was when one cycled to work, one ran, and they did really well. In the evening, both of them ended up getting pain. Okay, so why would that happen? When they actually cycle, one of them, as an example, cycled to work, was absolutely fine all day, cycled home, was fine. In the evening, that's when the pain came on. Because, you know, he was on a high, he'd managed to cycle, he'd been working on visualizing cycling. He actually hadn't used Visualize to help him afterwards. And he obviously afterwards, he's watching telly, which is just a distraction. Okay, so by distracting himself by watching telly, underneath these fears started coming up, and thinking, oh gosh, you're right, you cycle quite a long way, you haven't cycled that far before, no, you shouldn't have done that. Because there was a slight twinge, and then he focuses on the twinge, and then it's a, oh, you know, I knew it, I shouldn't have done it. And then the self-talk then triggered the emotion, which actually then triggered the pain. So literally by then working on that, he was able to resolve that. So it was the afterwards that he wasn't dealing with it. Whether that's relevant for you, Terry, or whether that's learned for you, it's learned that it will come a few minutes later. But there's no physical reason for you to be able to lift and then pain coming afterwards. And it might also help you to look at some of the evidence around them never finding any evidence for lifting being a cause for back pain. I hope that helps, Terry.
I was just going to say, there's one thing, Georgie, I was going to say is it's kind of one of those common misconceptions or things that you're told. So when I had my back problems, you know, a medical professional did say, because I had a toddler at the time, and I was told, well, don't, you know, try not to lift up your child too much, you know, it's a heavy weight. And of course, obviously, your reaction to that's such an emotional reaction. I'm not saying this is the same thing, but you know, and then you listen and you do what you're told because somebody from the medical background has told you, you know, try not to lift up your child too much. And then for me, I was just downright furious and angry, and I felt cheated.
Yes.
What, my back pain is stopping me from even being able to hug my own child. Like how wrong is that? So, you know, there's a lot of emotional stuff that's just mixed up in all of this, that until you become aware of it, I didn't think I was angry at the time. I was just like, yes, you've told me not to lift up my child. But obviously underneath it, I must have been angry and sad and furious and just all of these different things, because I felt, you know, that was robbing me of something so normal. So, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely. Sorry, I got distracted there. Another one popped up, and I was about to say something. No, it's gone. It's gone. Anyway, not to worry. Let's read this other one. So Lisa's. I'm glad it helped Terry anyway. And if it pops up what else I was going to say, then I'll say. Oh yeah, no, I remember now. So evidence around back pain. That there was so much. It just swept the board in, I think it was the 1990s, when they started considering that core stability was, you know, poor core stability was the problem. That's what was causing pain. And there was never any evidence for it. And yet, sadly, there are still so many practitioners out there teaching core stability. I remember somebody came to me and they were doing 5 hours of core stability work a day.
Yeah.
A day. Somebody who really over enthusiastic about it, but it hadn't made any difference to his pain, because it's not a physical thing. And so if you think that, you know, the core, what you need, they're saying you need a strong core, but even then, by all that exercise, having a strong core is showing no difference whatsoever. And thankfully, scientist who was looking into this, Peter O'Sullivan, changed tack when he realized that this wasn't the case. And now he's very, very much almost in alignment with the work that we do, although not as far as trauma is concerned. So I think there is no evidence whatsoever that lifting in a correct way is good for you.
Yeah.
Okay. And if you think that tension causes, stress causes tense muscles, and then you end up doing more core exercises, then you're making these tense muscles get even tenser.
Yeah.
The other thing would be, like you were saying, Lindsay, the pain that when your pain came on, Terry, have a think about when your pain began and what was going on in your life when it began, and was it initially while you were lifting, or was it afterwards? Look at the patterns, look at how you were feeling around the time that the pain came on as well, and that might give you some answers as well. So, okay, so Lisa, what about new pain? I had a place of pain in my right shoulder blade pop up about a month ago, and it's still here and driving me crazy. I have relationship issues that are bothering me, but I feel I'm stuck in a cycle here. Been getting chiropractic adjustments and acupuncture and trying to just ignore it and tell myself I'm safe. But the pain doesn't go. This gets so exhausting, thinking something is wrong and all of this focus. Okay, so it's basically a pain in your right shoulder blade, and it just came up through, by the sounds of it, no injury, no anything like that. I mean, we're talking about chronic pain. We're predominantly talking about chronic pain. So ideally, Lisa, you would be best speaking to, maybe book one of the free consultations. I presume you offer one, do you, Lindsay, a free discovery call?
Yeah, absolutely. Primarily to make sure for the client and for me that this is something that we can explore together. Because as you know, Georgie will know all too well, we have to rule out certain things first to make sure that this is the right and safe thing for this person to be doing. But absolutely, there could be numerous reasons as to why you would potentially get something that's cropping up in a different place.
Well, one of the things I would suggest, though, first of all, yes, by all means, book an appointment. But I don't know whether you've seen your GP or not.
You've got it checked out first.
Then you could get that checked out first.
Yeah.
But if it's just popped up like this, it seems like it's more likely to be a mind-body condition. Yeah. I have a blog on the SIRPA website about when my patella, my kneecap, subluxed in the middle of a boot camp. Now, at that point, there was nothing I could do except sit down at the side, calm my breathing down, do some emotional awareness, and allow myself to feel how I was feeling, because there was an awful lot going on. I talk you through that in that blog. I think it's an older blog, and it's got me there in a boot. You'll see a photo of me doing some exercise on a boot camp. That might help you, but what I would suggest is, even while you're waiting to see a GP or booking a call with Lindsay or whatever, just sit quietly, do some calm breathing, do some, really just allow yourself to feel how you're feeling. And as I mentioned earlier, just driving in a car, I ended up with pain in my shoulder. And I absolutely would say that if I hadn't dealt with the emotional side, which I was able to do straight away, it would have persisted as it always had done in the past. Okay, so this is something, if it's a new place of pain, it's very common. It's just as easy for it to be stress induced. But if you know that you're having relationship issues, then start to really, I don't know what you're doing about those, but start to get them addressed, sort of even just journaling, acknowledging, expressing how you're feeling. The fact that you're getting chiropractic adjustments and acupuncture tells me your beliefs are really looking at that you believe this is a physical problem. Whereas there's nothing wrong with you actually, if you've been seeing a chiropractor and they have just said that you just need slight adjustments, then there's actually no reason why you couldn't be doing this emotional stuff. If they thought there was anything serious going on, then they would have actually said something about it. Okay, they would have told you to get it checked out. So my gut instinct here would be book a call with Lindsay so she can just help discuss this, and also to start working on the emotional stuff, and probably stop the chiropractic adjustments, and it depends why you're having the acupuncture. But I think you sound like you've just come across this, Lisa, and maybe still not sure. So it might be that just whatever, even if you carry on with the chiropractic and acupuncture at the moment, check in with Lindsay, book a call and just see, find out a little bit more so she can give you guidance as to moving forward.
Yeah. I mean, as Georgie said, always best that it's checked out first medically, but to me, there might be an indication of an emotional response somewhere that you just haven't found the right outlet for that yet. You just haven't tapped into how to let that release or to let that go. And once you do, the body will start to react positively. But yeah, I would agree with you, Georgie.
Lovely. Great. Okay. And then Donna says, do you believe repressed emotions theory contributing to pain as per Dr. Sarno? Absolutely. Unresolved emotions can be repressed from the past. So repressed is you learn to repress them, okay, to protect you, usually as a child or maybe even later. Repressed is an unconscious repression of emotions, and therefore they will manifest in some way, even if it's not all the time. But yes, they definitely they will contribute to pain. But then you can have suppressed emotions. So this might be, if you're in a public place and you don't usually get angry and you're a bit embarrassed about being angry, but you really are angry, so you suppress how you're feeling. That can manifest in symptoms, as can being busy, ignoring all the signs that you're stressed, and this is what I call avoided emotions. So all three can play a role in that. Lisa, we will put Lindsay's details, or Lindsay, you could put your website, couldn't you, underneath in the chat box here when we finished. We'll do that. And if you can't do it from there, Lindsay, I can do it when we're finished.
I'll give it a go. I'll see if I can. I've got my website there. Make sure I'm spelling it right, because that's that's no good, is it? Hopefully
the other thing I would say is, Lisa, you say you've been doing TMS for a long while now. I think when people are saying this, and there are some people, as we know, who read the books that recover, their book recoveries, and that's wonderful. Now, some of those down the line, if they have a recurrence, may need help then, because they've not really learned as much as they could learn. Because often people, it's like, okay, we've got rid of the pain by reading the book, or by maybe doing a bit of journaling. Maybe down the line they need a little bit more. And therefore, this is an indication that, okay, there's some more stuff to do. But because this is there are so many unconscious patterns here. So I went to boarding school. I'm still aware of patterns that occur. But now, even if they lie dormant, but when the same sort of scenario comes up, they can be triggered. But now I'm more able to recognize them quicker and deal with them more quickly, so that they don't affect me as much. And some of them not at all now. So often we need, in fact, one of them I know I needed my husband to point out. So I just was talking to him at one point. He said, I wonder if this has anything to do with boarding school. It was like, oh my God, why did I not see that? And that really helped me then work on that. So I would suggest that by certainly booking a call with Lindsay could really help. But I think working one-to-one, I work with a coach. They see things, like you said, Lindsay, when somebody walks into the clinic, or you see them on screen, we listen to the way that people speak. If this is your normal automatic way of speaking, you may not be aware at all. Somebody might walk into the clinic in the past with me and say, I'm really sorry, I'm so late. And they're like, 1 minute late. And I thought, people pleasing. Or they're saying sorry a lot. Again, it's these things that we pick up. Or it could be that this is so common when we're working with a client, and they might do that. And we're talking about their relationship or their dad or whatever. They are completely unaware of doing that until you bring that to their attention. Okay, so this is where working, and I know some people can't afford one-to-one, but occasionally we have people running groups if that's more affordable. But that can be really effective at helpful to just reflect back in what you can't see yourself.
Yeah, definitely. That's a huge benefit that I found from working with Georgie. I know most of the SIRPA trained practitioners work with a coach or with somebody else, because the value of somebody just listening and being able to reflect back to you your own words. When I reflect my clients' words back to them, you can actually see that they're quite surprised, sometimes shocked by the language or the things that they're saying about themselves. You wouldn't dream
or denying it.
Yeah.
No, I didn't say that.
I just put it down, and I know that you did. Yeah. It's very, very powerful, and it's a very supportive environment. And sometimes you just need somebody to show you, the pathway. And once you're on it, you've got everything you need, and off you go. But you just need someone to get you on that pathway first, I think. Sometimes.
Yeah, because I think there can be lots of different reasons for your pain.
Yes,
so
unique.
For some, it might well be trauma from the past and patterns that have developed since then. Yeah. For other people, it may be that their lifestyle. There are so many different, the way they speak to themselves, whether they have anxiety, there are so many different things. And people seem to think it's a one-trick pony. This is just do this and you'll get better. And well, they read a book and got better. Why aren't I better? Yeah. But there can be something completely, more stuff going on underneath them that might be, or that, more layers.
Yeah, we're just not. I mean, human beings just are complex. We're all complex individuals, and we're all totally unique. And we've lived our experience; no one else has. And it's and accepting that and understanding that it's really important. We all have our own journey and our own way of finding our way through. But there will be something. The right solution is there for you. You just haven't found it yet. It's there.
Yeah, and I think what's so lovely about this work, it's not difficult. And I was it's not necessarily easy, but it is simple.
Yeah.
But it's knowing, it's not getting overwhelmed. It's learning to go with gut instinct, learning to feel, having that felt sense, trusting ourselves, being self-compassionate. None of that is really difficult, but it's not necessarily easy because we're challenging the whole way we've lived our lives sometimes, the whole way we've spoken to ourselves, the way we think and behave and believe. These are challenging things.
Yeah, I completely agree.
Okay, so Donna says that she has a long history of CPTSD and I'm 70 and this since childhood. Okay, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you can't ease things, Donna. So again, if you haven't worked with somebody, maybe consider working with Lindsay or booking with somebody that you feel could help. Maybe somebody, one of the psychotherapists. Depends on what you've done so far. If you've done loads of psychotherapy, it might be working with Lindsay or somebody who's done some somatic work, which is not the talk therapy. So very much about learning to tune into your own body and feel safe. So starting in a very safe way. Would you agree, Lindsay?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you're right, Georgie. I think, you've got to find the right personality to work with. It's got to be the right relationship for you. But I think getting out of your head, it's not a talking therapy. What we do is not talking therapy. It's far from it. It's about, really making it easy for you to access and understand the reactions in your body and becoming safe with them, and to really understand what's going in that internal world of yours. And once you've learned that new language, once you start to become familiar with it, it does get easier. And it's really powerful, and it works. I've worked with people who have had pasts of having, severe depression, lots of other, a lot to deal with, let's say, in their past, but they found this work to be so powerful because it took them out of that busy overthinking head, and it got them into a place of just basically, without sounding too woo-woo, it got them into a place of being at peace with themselves. They would just had that moment of peace, and everything else just shuts down. And you just find that, that regrounding and safety, and that will dial down the nervous system that's just learnt to become overactive and protective. And it's just about safety, really.
Yeah, great. So Donna, absolutely. This is as Lindsay just said, the first thing is about learning to feel safe in your body. And this is very much about the emotional awareness work. And some people, if they can't close their eyes, it's just lowering your gaze and just starting to feel safe, allowing yourself to feel some of these emotions, but in a very gentle way.
Yeah.
So we are going to need to finish now, but thank you. I love it when we get so many questions.
Thank
Really
you, and I
love
wish
it.
everyone well. Yeah, thanks for your questions, because it's fabulous to be able to answer them, and I really wish you well. And just reach out to anyone in the SIRPA community. Will always be, there's such a giving community. They will be more than happy to answer your questions.
Yeah, fabulous, lovely. Yeah. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah, this has been recorded, so it'll still be kept on the Facebook page and put on our YouTube page as well.
Yeah.
And we'll add in Lindsay's website in a moment if it's not there already. Okay. Thanks everybody. All the best.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.